Samsung have just released their FE lineup for 2023, and I've spent a week with the entire ecosystem in my hands. S23 FE, Tab S9 FE Plus, and Buds FE. I have got them all, and I've got some thoughts. Let's take a look at what they're all about. Let's go. Samsung were kind enough to loan me the FE ecosystem for a couple of months so I can sort of give you my thoughts and opinions on how they are and what they contribute to the market. To look at these today, we are going to break it down via device and then take a bit of a look at how the FE ecosystem connects together. Let's start with the S23 FE. The S23 FE is the latest FE fan edition device from Samsung. They missed a year. I wouldn't say they missed a year because they did launch one last year. They just missed a series. There was no S22 FE due to probably the S21 FE launching in 2022 anyway. So it's back. The FE series makes a return this year via the S23 FE. Before we sort of dive too deep into the phone itself, I want to answer a question that I've asked myself and have been asked myself as well. What's the point of the FE series? We've got the A series for Samsung. That exists already. And by now, you can probably pick up the base model S23 for a pretty good discount if you shop in the right areas. So why this? And why now? The FE exists, and this is the point that it all started, was to take the brand recognition from the S series and give customers who are maybe priced out of the market at this point something to aspire to and still latch onto. Because let's take a quick journey back to when the Galaxy S8, S9 launched. Their prices in Australia, for example, were $12.49 and $13.49 for the base and the plus respectively. Now, if someone were to buy a smartphone at the flagship level, you're probably looking at minimum $1,500 starting point. Yes, the S23 can start a bit cheaper, but at the most point, you're not going to be able to really get something that's maybe got a bigger screen, for example, unless you're spending like $1,700, $1,800. So it's all about bringing flagship features and packaging it at a price point that is palatable and with a lower barrier to entry for people who are holding on to their flagships for a little bit longer. Some people also might find the A series not quite enough phone for their usage. This sort of slots right in the middle between A and flagship and gives them kind of the best of both, value for money and flagship level specifications. This year's variants in Australia, you have the 8GB 128GB of storage variant for $999. A flagship phone for just a tick under $1,000. That's very, very palatable and should act as a good entry point for a lot of people. Before we descend into something that this shouldn't be, this is a hands-on impressions video after all, let's dive into the phone itself. Design-wise, it actually has more in common with the A series of this year than the S23 series of this year. It's got a lot of the same design cues, the minimalist camera housing. You've got the aluminium frame, which is slightly rounded to sort of give you that nicer in-hand feel. But that's kind of where that similarities end. Because around the front, you've got the thicker bezels from the A series. You've got the Gorilla Glass 5 on the back, which is glossy, not matte. And it's definitely a lot heavier than the S21 FE used to be, which was a matte plastic back. So it does feel a lot heftier. Maybe makes it feel more premium. I don't know. You'll have to judge for yourself when you decide to get a hold of one of these. But for me, it definitely does feel a lot heavier than what I remember. On paper, it has a dynamic AMOLED 2X display, which is very impressive. It's got a peak brightness as well of 1000 nits in high brightness mode, which should serve you absolutely fine in the majority of situations you find yourself in. The screen is also an adaptive refresh rate. It's between 60 and 120 Hz, whereas I believe the S21 FE was a fixed 120 Hz. I'll have to go back and check. But the dynamic AMOLED is a big upgrade here, and that definitely is a step above what the A series is in terms of display quality. The S23 FE actually has an under-display fingerprint scanner too, but it is an optical kind, and it is much too low. That's my take on it. It is definitely too low for where it should be. It should be higher up on the phone. I don't think it's a deal breaker, just when you're used to it being higher, you go higher. The thing is though, you're not likely to come from a higher range to this. Not likely, not saying it's impossible, but I just thought I'd note that it's optical, not ultrasonic. Not going to be as reliable as ultrasonic is. It is comfortable to hold, although I'm used to much narrower phones now, especially having used the Fold 5 for the last 6 weeks. This definitely feels a lot wider than that. The display here, though, from a design standpoint, is what you will enjoy. As I said, that dynamic AMOLED display looks great. It's 6.4 inches, so it falls kind of in between the 6.1 and 6.6 of the S23 and S23 Plus. And it's that perfect middle ground. in terms of size. Display quality as well is sensational. You'll absolutely enjoy watching content. It's sharp, vibrant. It's perfect for media consumption. The only thing that when you look at it is the bezels. And I'm not a big bezels hater. It's just noticeable, especially when you think about the S23 series and the flagship level. You do see these a lot more. But ultimately, when you're using the phone, it's not going to bother you. Looking at the cameras, we have a big upgrade to the main camera on the back of the S23 FE. We have a 50 megapixel main camera, which I'm led to believe is the same as the Fold 4. So it is a flagship grade camera system, or at least main camera. The ultra wide and the 3x telephoto are 12 megapixel and 8 megapixel respectively. Basically, it's got a flagship level main camera and it's surrounded by some very capable cameras either side of it or top and bottom of it. They've also changed the selfie camera this year. It's a 10 megapixel. Shouldn't deter you, even though it's not that 32 megapixel from the FE. I actually, in my sort of usage so far, have found it to be better. So here are some camera samples for you to sort of enjoy. I tested a bunch of things like the portrait mode. I tested some ultra wide camera and also took a bit of a look at the 50 megapixel and the main just sort of 12 megapixel shooting experience. They're all really nice. The processing is good. We'll talk about the Exynos 2200 in a moment. Honestly, I don't think you'll find too much to complain about, especially for the price point of this phone. Something I did notice in operation was just how smooth the camera was. The transition from ultra wide to 3x and sort of even beyond was quite noticeable to be very smooth. So that's something you might notice too in your usage if you pick this up, is they have seemed to optimize that range and that transition. Just thought I'd point it out. Being a flagship too, with a flagship processor, you get all of the flagship camera modes. You've got the 2x portrait crop in portrait mode. You have features like director's view, the full version, because in the S21 FE, it just had the half-baked version. You've got the full version of single take on here. Everything is kind of at capacity. You lose out on expert raw, and you lose out on the ability to take 50 megapixel raw shots in pro mode. That's probably down to a processor thing to do with the S23. But that's okay. I don't think that's a big deal because you can actually shoot 8K 24. First time on a fan edition device, 8K video recording. It's not the 30 frames a second from the S23 series, but again, I think the point of it is that it's not meant to be the full version, but it's still meant to offer you something. With all of that done, I will point out this was the July software update, so it's probably running a bit behind. There's no updates that I've gotten for this either, but I imagine when updates do become available once the device is on sale, you'll see some improvements as the phone gets optimized as people start using it. From a performance level, it's got the Exynos 2200, and I have used this for the last week, and I've kind of been interacting with it, pushing the phone through its paces. Samsung have actually made the Exynos 2200 better than what it was in the S22 series last year. I would almost go as far as to say it's probably the Exynos 2200 Plus. It's that big of a jump that they've definitely made it feel a lot smoother, a lot faster, and I haven't noticed any heating issues. So we're on a good track so far with the week I've had with it. I haven't had it long enough yet for it to optimize my battery usage, but the 4500 mAh battery is doing enough in my first week, but I will aim to sort of keep you updated as the phone gets used a lot more before I do have to eventually give it back. The good thing is Samsung haven't made any sacrifices when it comes to charging. I mean, sacrifices in that it's the same as what the S23 base model offers you. 25 watt fast charging, fast wireless charging, you've got wireless power share. You don't actually miss any of the flagship charging features just because it's a fan edition. I like too that Samsung doesn't degrade the fan edition version of the S23 for performance features. Like it can run Samsung DeX in its full form, both cable and wireless. So that's really great to see. You've got the S23 FE in both 128 and 256 gig variants, and both of them have 8 GB of RAM. You've got some nice quality of life inclusions. You've got Bluetooth 5.3, you have IP68 as well. It definitely represents good value for money, and I'll go through a value offer that's here in Australia a little bit later in the video, but not bad. Samsung this year have decided to release both a FE and an FE Plus in the Tab S9 FE variants. So you've got two sizes on offer, which is great to see. There's definitely more value for money to be had by picking up an FE tablet if you choose to do so. Well, let's break it down because there is some inconsistencies within the FE lineup between this and the S23 FE. From a design standpoint, my first impressions are positive. It's got a very nice build quality. The full aluminium build feels premium. it's sturdy, but also lightweight at the same time. You know, this FE Plus is 627 grams. So definitely doesn't feel too heavy for a device that's a 12.4-inch screen. I've got to say, I'm so used to the Ultra now that 12.4 inches just seems tiny for a tablet. I'm not silly enough to know it's not. Very similar in design to the Tab S9 Plus, that it's sort of, I guess it's its cousin, I guess you could say. But you do miss some things that brings. And that's of course going to happen being a fan edition. It kind of is designed to retain the essentials and core of the Tab S9 without needing the extras that you get by going to that flagship level. One of those shortcomings is it's an LCD panel, not AMOLED. This is where I started to get a bit of a confusion going on, because the S23 FE is dynamic AMOLED 2X. So I would imagine that for consistency, there should be some AMOLED sort of parity, at least on this, to sort of match that. Because if you wanted to pick up the ecosystem for the fan editions, you'd kind of want a similar experience across all three of them. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal, because most people that buy Samsung tablets in this price point are just buying them isolated on their own. They're not really picking up the ecosystem. They're buying this for their kids. It's a tablet to keep around the house, to chuck in their backpack. That's what this mainly is for. So the LCD screen, it's not a big deal. I just thought I'd make you aware of it. It's a Quad HD resolution with a 16:10 aspect ratio. I really like this aspect ratio, and I much prefer it to sort of the wider, not as tall ones. I do like this because for entertainment, which most people use tablets for, it's kind of perfect. The display itself is an adaptive 90Hz refresh rate. We didn't get that on the Tab S7 FE, that was fixed at 60Hz. So it is a jump, and it's nice to see a refresh rate of some kind on a device that's not the flagship, Apple. On the back, you have the same minimalistic camera design with 2 rear cameras, because tablets still need cameras on the back, apparently. But the best of the cameras is the one on the front. The 12 megapixel center front-facing camera in landscape orientation is great. And the whole purpose of this is to support you in video calls. It's an ultra-wide camera. So it means that when you are taking those video calls, it's going to be able to follow you around the room with its auto-framing functionality. It also supports 4K 30 video recording. So if you are recording and uploading a live stream or conducting some sort of recording session, I don't know where I'm going with this, but you do get some higher quality from this front camera. Positively too, it supports 1 terabyte of microSD expansion. So I really like that Samsung tablets still get that on board. Something too with its design that sort of ties in, I guess, is that it's IP68. So Samsung have managed to do the same as their Tab S9 in the Tab S9 FE range. Big plus. Big plus here, because it just means you're not limited to mobility. The tablet, you can take it sort of all environments. Something else I should point out with the design is that it is a side fingerprint scanner. There is no under display fingerprint scanner here like you've got on the Tab S9 series in general. What I really like is the software inclusions. The Tab S9 FE runs One UI 5.1.1. So you get all of the goodies that the Fold 5 and the Tab S9 series got before it earlier on in the year in August or July. My God, the year's gone fast. Things like the taskbar, that's all there. Plus it gets the 4 recent apps of the taskbar too. You also get the advantage of the pop-up window that you can dock off to the side. So there's lots of things that you can take advantage of when it comes to the software. And you have on-device decks. You do not get decks going onto a monitor or a wireless display, but on the device, you do get it. Be aware of that, because that is there. Also included is support for the S Pen. It comes in the box. So the S Pen will come with this. Now it's a passive S Pen. There's no Bluetooth Low Energy support for it. I think for this though, that's actually totally reasonable. Those Bluetooth Low Energy actions are definitely reserved for your ultra sort of power users. I think on this level, you're absolutely looking to do some light creativity, some light productivity. And for that, the S Pen will do the job. It does actually sort of magnet to the back, so at least the Tab S9 one that I have here does. I haven't got an FE one. Samsung didn't provide that when they sent the unit out, but let's just go ahead and assume it's going to do the same thing, because the magnet support is obviously there. Now, from a performance standpoint, all of that is backed up by the Exynos 1380. No, that wasn't a mistake. I didn't miss out on saying 2200. My thoughts are it should have been the 2200 for consistency. The Tab S9 and the S23 both have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy. I would have thought that for consistency, you'd get performance levels on the S23 FE and here that match each other. Not to be. Samsung have put the A54 processor into here. It's going to still enable you to do the things you need to do on here without going above and beyond like maybe the 2200 with its new refinements might do. But with an LCD display to power, it's not going to be that big of a deal. So don't stress over it. It does have a massive battery, 10,090 milliamp hours, that charges at 45 watts. Decent. That's the main crux of the Tab S9 FE Plus, and if you're a fan of the channel, hit subscribe. Oh dear. This is the product though that I was most excited for, or curious about. Do you know what? Both. Because I did hear a little bit of a rumor that something was coming back that I adored from earlier versions of the Buds before they went all pro on me. And that is the wingtip. Before I get into that though, what I really kind of thought of first was that the Buds 2 effectively were Buds Fan Editions, because they were pared back versions of the Pro and still offered full functionality of some kind, but pared things back. Turns out Samsung had another level to go down to, and that is the Buds FE. But in some ways, these could be the default that you should get. Let me explain why. Like I said, the return of the wingtip is 100% what I'm most excited for. When I had the Buds Plus, they were everything. They never fall out. These infinitely improve the experience of the buds being held in your ear. Since they ditched them with the Pros when they came in, I wouldn't say I've had all sorts of problems. I will say the Buds 2 Pro have definitely by far been the best, but they just don't seem to hold themselves in there as easily and as comfortably as what the wingtip buds used to. These are by far the closest we have got to what the Buds Plus were, and if anything, I think they've enhanced what they were offering. I went to the gym with these this week and I had absolutely no problems whatsoever. Instinctively, I would go to try and adjust them because that's just what I've been used to doing. And I realized I didn't need to, because no matter what sort of workout I was doing, whether I was doing a workout that my face would be making funny sort of reactions, or whether I'd be running on the treadmill, I had absolutely zero problems with them moving in my ear. They sat there in their place, no movement, and the wingtips just comfortably stopped them from coming out of their place. It was sensational. These have ANC, which is great, but what I really appreciate is the fact that they've got ANC with the passive noise cancelling. Because the Buds Plus were sensational at actually passive noise cancellation. These, because they've got now ANC up to 98%, Samsung are claiming, with the passive noise cancelling by sealing off your ear, I don't hear anything. It's fantastic, and for the gym, they offer you a really great solution, and I'm really surprised by it and impressed. Some of the numbers, like battery life, for example, with the case included in this number, there's up to 30 hours of usage when you don't use active noise cancellation. When you do, it's up to 21 hours. Individually, like without the case, the Buds 8.5 hours without ANC and 6 hours with it. So long enough, right? And then you chuck them in the case to charge and you've got some extra life to get out of them. 10 minutes of charging will get you just under 2 hours, so about 110 minutes of playback, which I think is reasonable enough, but you will have to do that charge via cable only. Samsung have not enabled this case to be able to be charged wirelessly. So that is where I guess the step down comes from the Buds 2, is that they've decided to ditch the wireless charging case. Despite the fact the cases look physically identical to each other, like this is the Buds 2 and this is the Buds FE, you don't actually get the wireless charging out of this case. It's strange because, like I mentioned earlier with the S23 FE, that has wireless power share. I just would imagine that would be a perfect fit for the ecosystem, but we haven't got it. Now, in my listening, obviously I need to talk about how these sound. They sound great. I'm not saying they sound the best of any buds that Samsung make. That is definitely still reserved for the Buds 2 Pro. But for what they cost, which is $199 here in Australia, the sound is more than enough for the most average of user. The way I sort of compare this to the Buds 2 Pro, for example, is imagine the sound that comes out of your TV. You're perfectly happy with that sound. In fact, you're most likely never really going to complain about it because you've got a high-end TV-ish, depending on how much you've spent on your TV, and it sounds great enough. You're not really bothered. But then you get a soundbar, and then you notice infinitely the quality of the sound jumps. Dominantly focused on the camera. So it's time to see what has changed from 1 month to the next. Now let's go. Focused on the camera. So it's time to see what has changed from 1 month to the next. Now let's go. That's what this is like. You've got TV sound for the Buds FE and then stereo dynamic sound, punchier sound from a soundbar when you add that into the equation. But if you never had the soundbar, you'd be perfectly happy with the TV sound. And I've been like that with the Buds FE this week. It's clear, it's got punchy enough bass, and then I put the Buds 2 Pro in and I'm reminded it's got punchier sound and definitely has a more audiophile experience about it. But I don't think it'll be that big of a deal. If you just want clear sound with enough bass to get you by, the Buds FE are going to be perfect. The last point to make here is ecosystem. The three of these at their core is basically Samsung stripping back the ultra sort of higher end features and keeping the essentials. Keeping the core parts of what make the flagship and putting it into a more affordable package that you can enter into. In my opinion, I almost feel like the E in FE should stand for essentials, not addition, because it is basically the essentials of the ecosystem experience, not the ultra or the top end stuff. The thing is, as a trio, you don't really miss out on too much of Samsung's core ecosystem features. You've got Buds auto switching between the two devices, so depending on what's happening, it'll jump back and forth. The copy and paste between Tab S9 FE and S23 FE. If you've got a number that you copy over here, you can paste it over there, and that's all linked by your Samsung account. And that all sort of formulates part of why you could access this ecosystem at an affordable level. Let's price it all out. The S23 FE, you can pick that up at $9.99 Australian right now. Obviously, other markets will have different prices. Maybe play along with me in your country, see what it might value out at for you. Tab S9 FE, plus, again, what I've got, $9.99 too. The Buds FE at $1.99 Australian. Combine that all together, you have $21.99 for 3 devices, 3 mobility products that can enhance the way you use technology altogether. Let's look at the flagship level of this version. The base model S23, for example, we'll start there. You have $13.49 for the base model S23. The Tab S9 Plus, which is like for like what we've got here with the Tab S9 FE Plus, that's $16.99. And then you've got the Buds 2, not even the Buds 2 Pro, just the Buds 2, they're $249 Australian. That total price is $3,297. Over $1,000 more for 3 mobility products that you could get the same value out of if you didn't need all those extra functions. Myself personally, I would find value in that higher end model. I prefer the AMOLED display of the Tab S9. I prefer the snappier, more capable cameras of the S23 series. And the Buds 2 Pro, I much prefer the sound that comes out of that. And of course, my favorite part of the Buds 2 Pro is the fact that it's water resistant. Thing that might have gone under the radar here is Samsung have released new smart tags, the Smart Tags 2. Now, I had the original smart tags and I loved them. So I'm ecstatic that they're bringing a second version out and made them even better. Samsung are touting an impressive 500 days of battery and 700 days of battery if you go into low power saving mode with them. I love the new design too. It's got an inbuilt keyhole ring, which is nice. It retains the button that you can press to program, and it's IP67. So obviously you want it to last the elements if you take something out and it gets lost and it rains, for example. $55 Australian dollars, decent. So for any S23 FE customers that purchase their phone during the offer period here in Australia, which is the 12th of October to the 1st of November, you'll actually get these smart tags as a gift with purchase. Not just one of them though, 4 of them. Plus Samsung are also chucking in a battery pack as part of this offer, bringing you a total value of $238 extra when you order during this period. And there's an extra savings of $200 if you trade in an old device. Again, this is all through Samsung. Long story short, these devices definitely have something for the right person. And I hope the stuff I've gone through can help you make that decision over which one of these you want to get, whether they're worth it for you at all. And I guess just let me know in the comments if you are going to pick one of these up. What would you like to see from me next before I have to give these back? So thank you very much. And thank you to Samsung for sending the products out. I hope you guys have enjoyed this breakdown. I really hope you have. And if you have, please consider subscribing. Again, I've got plenty more like this on the channel. Go check it out. Plenty more to come too. But between now and my next video, come hang out with me on Twitter/X and also on Instagram. And I'll see you then. Yoo!